Right, this has just turned up. What is it? Well, hopefully, once we open the box, in here should be the We Are Rewind GB001 Curtis cassette boombox type thing. I say boombox type thing because it isn't, in my eyes, strictly a normal boombox, because whilst it has a cassette deck in it, record and play, it's got stereo speakers, it's got Bluetooth as well, it doesn't have a radio in it. And in my head, I always think a boombox has to have a radio in it. I mean, let me know if you disagree, but I know from featuring things with radios in them recently, a lot of people in the comments will say, who listens to the radio anymore? Well, of course, the answer to that is that people who listen to the radio tend to listen to it more than people who don't. However, they're not going to listen to it through this unless, of course, you connect your phone up to it via Bluetooth and you use some streaming app and all that kind of stuff. So maybe that's the way things have gone. But yeah, in my head, I'm thinking there should be at least an FM radio in here, but there isn't. Now, we're going to talk about the features. I'll test out the performance, but we've got to talk about the price, because I think that's going to be the big sticking point for a lot of people. Here in the UK, it's £389. Now, everything will lead off from that, of course, because when you have the price point in your head, then you can start assessing whether or not you think the performance and components are up to that price point. Let's hope they are. They've obviously got some confidence in this because they sent me an email before they sent it over. This is a free review sample. Got to point that out. Haven't paid for this. I would not pay £389 for this, personally. Not because I know how good or bad it is, just because I don't need another cassette player, another boombox, another Bluetooth speaker that badly. I've got plenty of older ones that perform just fine. So it's not something, I'm not the customer for this. I'm not sure there is a customer for this, but we'll find out. But yeah, they got in touch and they said, this is the We Are Rewind people, a very hard name to pronounce. I am reaching out after 3 years because we recently launched a new product, boombox/speaker. Would be interested in you testing it, type of thing. We specifically value your opinion because throughout its development, the question that frequently came up in our discussions was, what would Techmoan think? This is genuinely not an exaggeration. So they're going to find out, what do I think? Well, let's open it up and have a good look at it. And both you and they will know what I think. And I wrote back to them, by the way, and said, look, I'm going to be completely honest about this. Whether it's good or bad, I'm just going to say my own thoughts on this. And they were happy to send it over. So they do have some kind of confidence in its abilities. You've got to say it's a heavy box. Always a good sign, unless it's filled with some bricks or something. But anyway, let's open it up and find out. Now, I'd imagine there's going to be a nice looking box inside this packing box. So let's get into that. They have told me they've sent another review sample out to a second YouTuber. There's only 2 of these gone out, and the other one's gone out to Anna Dialogue, and I'll link to that in the video description, at least to the channel, because I won't have the video to link to, but you might want to look at that one for an alternative point of view on this. But yeah, nice looking box though, isn't it? Okay, so we've got the specs on the side here, so feel free to pause and have a look through these. I'm just going to mention a couple of the things that jump out to me though. First off, the amplifiers here. Total power, 104 watt. That's 232 watt for the woofers and 220 for the tweeters, RMS. As far as the battery pack goes, it's replaceable. It's a lithium pack, and apparently, according to this, it will get you 10 hours of playback in tape mode, 15 hours in the auxiliary mode. Of course, it gets more than that if you listen through headphones rather than speakers. As far as the cassette deck goes, well, we can see the Wow&Flutter showing up here as circa 0.15% typical. Okay, I just want to show you something around the other side that I saw that was interesting. Hold on. Okay, so starting at the top, they seem quite proud of the sound quality. They've gone about the distortion suppression, the refined equalization to produce a natural sound. It's got spatialization for a more immersive stereo image, so apparently it should sound quite good. But the thing I'm most interested in on here is the fact it goes on about a best-in-class cassette deck mechanism. Now, it's going to be the same cassette deck mech that everyone has to use. However, you can spec it up to a much higher standard than other companies would do, and no doubt that is what they're referring to here. They've spec'd it up as best they can, so we'll test that performance out in a bit. But I do want to mention here, they've got this internal speed regulation. Now I notice it mentions that you can adjust the pitch via a control on this. I don't know if that's referring to that or if it's going to try and keep the speed regular using some kind of quartz lock type system. But this bit at the end is interesting, noise reduction. So of course it can't have Dolby noise reduction because you can't license that anymore. However, you could make something that was roughly similar, or you could use some kind of digital noise reduction which would reduce the hiss that's present in the background on a Type 1 tape that didn't have any kind of Dolby noise reduction on, which would be appropriate for the modern day releases which don't come with Dolby on and come on Type 1 tape and might have a bit of a hiss in the background, and that could reduce that on all those tapes. You don't have to have Dolby, so that could actually be a very positive thing. Right, let's get into this. I'm not sure whether I have to send this back, but just in case I do, I'll make sure I don't damage the packaging while I get this out. Instructions. Yeah, that's got some weight to it, that. And remember, this thing doesn't have any D cells in it. Yeah, that's reminiscent in a way, this handle and the case design of a boombox that I've featured in the past. I'll bring that back in the video later because it is kind of relevant in a way. But let's get into this one. So I'll spin it around, bring you around here, we'll have a good look at it. Oh, yeah. Okay, so I put the appropriate flavour of plug on the end of the adapter here. I've got a barrel plug on the other end, quite a bit of cable, and just want to mention the output on here, 18 volts, 4 amps. Of course, it's multi-voltage input on there. Right, let's see if there's any power in the actual device first before we try and charge it up. Now, I'll just move the handle out of the way, but before I do that, I just want to mention the sides here are plastic. The top is aluminium, and you can hear a nice click when it gets into position at the top, which holds it in place. Anyway, we'll put it out of the way. And it clicks at the other end as well, and we'll see what we've got on here. Right, so at this end we've got manual recording levels, which of course will be reflected on the VU meters on the front. 3.5mm headphone output, 3.5mm mic input, and 3.5mm auxiliary input. A selector to choose between Type 1 or Type 2 tape. This is your main source selector, so off is the tape position, then Bluetooth and the auxiliary input. Bass, treble and balance. Now, these have a nice feel to them. I know it's only a little thing, but they do feel of decent quality. They hold in position, and the actual plastic that's used here feels nice and solid. The balance does have a centre detent on it, and then we've got the volume here, which again feels like a nice control. Bluetooth button over here, and indicator no doubt for the Bluetooth as well as the battery. Presumably that lights up when you're charging it. Let's just see if there's anything on the back that's worth looking at. Okay, short answer, no, not an awful lot to look at here. However, we do have this hole, which actually turns out to be a base port that goes down into this section, and then this will be the panel to get into the battery. So let's just take that off while we're here, just have a look what kind of battery we've got in there. Okay, well, it's a pack that's made up of 18650s stuck together. Let's just lever that out. So that's 4 cells in there, and of course it can be unplugged from that end as well. Right, okay, well there you go, now you know. Now towards the end of the video I hope to open this up and have a look inside. I've just noticed though that it's going to take me a little bit more time than I would have hoped, because they've got a heck of a lot of screws in here if all of these rubber covers are hiding a screw. Looks like the back comes off via a seam here, so this is just one panel that comes off, then we'll have the access to the centre of it, but there's 13 screws in here, which is great for holding it together, not so great for taking it apart. But never mind, we'll do that later. Let's get this thing switched on. Okay, well, since we're already in the tape mode, we might as well start off with that. I think it's perhaps the most important feature on this, so let's just press play, see what happens, see if we've got some power in this. Right, now the lights came on behind the 2 VUs. You won't be able to see that probably due to all the studio lights in here. But it's playing at the moment with, of course, no cassette in there. Let me just turn the volume all the way up and see if we've got any kind of background noise. Yeah, now that's absolute maximum. It's very quiet. Yeah, normally you get quite a bit of hiss out of any modern day cassette boombox if you were to turn it up to maximum. That is pleasingly quiet. Okay, I'll turn it down so I don't get my ears blasted when we finally get this thing going. Let's just have a look inside here. You can see it's a two-head system. We've got the erase head, we've got the play/record head. On a more sophisticated hi-fi deck of old, you might have a three-head system. Erase, record, and then play over here. By having the three heads, you can listen to what you've just recorded as it's being recorded. With this system, you've got to either record or play. Now, the way that this is set up, you can see on the left, the thing with the writing on it, the erase head, that is an electromagnet. It's an AC erase system. It's not your permanent magnet that you see in so many boomboxes nowadays. Those are traditionally coloured blue, and those are brought up to the tape when they need to erase it. But they do such a terrible job of it, and producing really bad quality, hissy, noisy recordings. Don't do a particularly good job of erasing the previous recording on there either. Yeah, just a terrible system. So this is the way to go, an electromagnet which switches on or off depending upon whether you're recording, but is always brought up to the tape. So let me just show you. We press play here, you can see it come up towards the tape. So both of these are in contact with the tape, whether you're playing or recording, but if you're recording, that one's switched on to erase the tape before it hits the record head. But the rest of the mechanism here looks much the same as anything we've seen before. No doubt they've spec'd it up to as high a standard as they can. I don't know if you can get different quality of record heads, but hopefully if you can, they've bought a good one. But yeah, the rest of it's all rather normal. Right, now before I play some music, just one more thing to test. Full auto stop. Now there's so many cassette devices nowadays will not auto stop on fast forward and rewind. They'll only do it on play. So we'll find out if this does all three. Also want to mention, having the buttons below the cassette well here means that you can have the arrows pointing in the traditional way. There's so many of these modern day devices flip it the other way up because it's easy to put these on the top, but that then means that fast forward points to the left, play points to the left, rewind points to the right. Gets a little bit confusing. So let's pop this in here. Now that's quite a tight fit. It might just be this cassette. In a way it's quite good, it stops it rattling around, but yeah, we'll try another cassette in a moment. So we've got this, I think, almost to the end. Let's just fast forward it and see what happens. Oh yeah, there we go. Auto stop on fast forward, and of course it will therefore also do the same thing on play. Hopefully. Yeah, there we are. And we'll just flip it the other way around and test it on rewind. Oh yeah, there we are. Let's see if we can jump between them like that. Yeah, all right. Okay, all that's working perfectly. Let me find a cassette to play on this. Okay, so I got some music on this that I recorded from the YouTube audio library. I did it on my Sony TC-D5M, so it sounds pretty good. It's on a Type 1 tape though, but we'll start with this one. The rewind isn't the fastest on this, I've noticed. I mean, it's doing its job, but it's going to take a few seconds, so I might as well read the instructions while it's getting on with it. Okay, well there we are. That gave me time to look through the quick start guide. The only thing I've really learned from this is that you can record any of the sources onto the cassette, whether or not it's coming in via Bluetooth or via the auxiliary input, which could be useful to some people. But it also made me think that it'd be nice if this thing also had a CD player on it. So yeah, I'd be more happy if this had a FM radio on it and a CD player, but then I suppose it's going to be a completely different thing. But as it is, it's just a cassette and a Bluetooth device, and to me that feels a little bit lacking in features. But never mind, we'll play with what we've got. We've got the cassette here. Let me just get a little bit of the way into it and have a listen. One thing noticeable by its absence is a lack of a queuing facility, the ability to listen to the music whilst you're fast forwarding or rewinding. It's something that I find quite handy when I want to get to the next track on a cassette, as in now, when I don't want to be listening to this, I want to be listening to the next one along. But if I hold down fast forward, it just jumps into playback, same with rewind. So you have to just keep jumping back and forth like this to find the next track. And we've found it now, so let's have a listen. Well, wow, that's a surprise. Well, in a way, I mean, I know you can get a good set of speakers and a good amplifier and put them in a case like this. Yeah, that's taken as read. But as far as the cassette side of things goes, it sounds a lot better than I was expecting. In fact, I would say at this point, I haven't done all the testing I need to, but at this point, it sounds better than any boombox I had in the 1980s. And of course, I suppose it should do. The speakers and amplifier technology has improved considerably since then. You can get a better quality speaker in a smaller case with more bass. But they've always been paired up with rubbishy cassette mechs and done on the cheap. This obviously hasn't been done on the cheap, and you can tell. Now, I've only done a bit of testing so far. I've been playing Type 1 tapes I've recorded on another device and playing them back on here with YouTube Audio Library music on, because I can play those in the video without hitting content matches. I need to do some testing for myself. I pulled a few cassettes off the shelf. In here, I've got a mixture of Type 1 and Type 2. And those two types, with and without Dolby noise reduction on. These are pre-recorded albums. And I'll be intrigued to see how that sounds, because I think this noise reduction function that they're using here is doing a really good job of reducing down any background hiss. So I'll be interested to see how these sound. I mean, I'm only going to be playing bits of them, but I'll be turning it all the way up and seeing if I can hear anything that's wrong with it. And then once I've got through these, we'll do some Wow&Flutter tests. But in a way, it's a bit academic, because so far I'm not noticing anything wrong with the sound. So you might be able to get a result on a thing that says, oh, you've got this much Wow&Flutter. But if you're not hearing it, what does it matter? But of course, we'll be doing it. But give me a few minutes. I want to go listening to some music that I haven't listened to for quite some time.
From the intro, I gotta line it up. Just chill out, come on, wind it up. We want you all to know that we got to go. But it was big fun while it lasted.
Well, I really enjoyed listening to those. Of course, I didn't listen all the way through every cassette. I just picked out some tracks that I'm more familiar with. And I can't say I've ever heard those sound better on any other portable cassette player that I own. Even the ones that had Dolby encoding on them. The fact that this device doesn't decode Dolby didn't seem to be an issue. It's potentially a problem, because you could end up with a Dolby cassette sounding a little bit harsh on a device that hasn't got Dolby decoding. Didn't notice that. But if I had, I could have adjusted the treble down a bit or increased the bass or done a bit of both, but I didn't need to bother. Also, some of these are Type 2 tapes and some are Type 1. I flipped the switch between the two. I couldn't tell the difference. Maybe that's just me getting old, but maybe I'm just not that picky. Or maybe it's not something that really applies to playback, it's only recording. I couldn't really find it in the specs, but regardless, doesn't matter. Playing a cassette on this sounds really good, a lot better than I've heard them played on anything for years, anything new, that is, that's been manufactured in the last, I don't know, 15 years or so. So yeah, big thumbs up for cassette playback. Now, let's just have a look at some results. It sounded great, but let's test it out on the Wow&Flutter machine. To start with, I've got a 3 kilohertz tone that's being played from this Walkman into the device, and once the needles settle down, you'll see that we're attaining perfect results, because of course we're using a digital file. So 0 in the center here indicates the perfect speed, and the needle slowly moving down to 0 on the right here, indicating that there's 0 Wow&Flutter. We're using a scale of 0.3 on both of these. So we're going to be looking at the bottom of both to start with. Let's try it via the cassette. Okay, so these are the results. I've got to mention these Wow&Flutter test cassettes can introduce a little bit of error themselves, so you've got to bear that in mind. It's not producing a perfect result, so these could be affected by that, but still we're getting very good results here. If we start off on the Wow&Flutter, remember the bottom scale here is a 0 point, so 0.3, 0.2, 0.1. It's over that, but it's not up to 0.15, so it's sort of 0.14% Wow&Flutter, something like that, which is as per the specs. So they're within their own specs. On the speed here, it looks like we're a little bit off center, but again, 0.3, 0.2, 0.1. So around about 0.15% fast, perhaps. So I wouldn't be able to determine that when listening to it, and I wouldn't be able to determine that when listening to it. So these results are just fine for me. Okay, it's quite possible this is the best portable cassette recorder on the market nowadays, so we might as well make some recordings with it. I've got a Type 1 tape here, Type 2 over here. These have both been previously used but blanked off, so let's try recording something onto this. Now, I'm going to get some audio from my Walkman. I'm going to play a piano track into this because those always show up any kind of problems with the speed fluctuating, and also it's a track with a quiet background. There's not an awful lot going on, so we'll be able to determine if there's any noise there as well. So let me just get this queued up and we'll have a go. Right, so you can see these needles are hardly moving. Now, just want to mention something about that. During playback, or with an external source like this, it's a power meter. But you put it into record, it becomes a proper VU meter for your recording level. So let's do that now. We'll put pause on and record, and you'll see they're bouncing around quite a lot more now. And of course I can adjust the record level. That is absolute maximum there though, because this is a very quiet track, which is why I'm using it, because you'll be able to hear any kind of hiss that's in the background. So we've got it all set up now. It's in record pause. We've got it on Type 1 tape. So let's just get back to the beginning of this and take the pause off. Right, here we go. Now, one thing to mention, there's no tape counter, which of course is a bit of an issue when it comes to rewinding back to the beginning of this recording. That, combined with the fact we don't have queuing ability on this cassette, means we're going to have to do a bit of playing around to get back to the start. But I really just want to hear if this thing has a lot of hiss in the background, because of course we're starting off with a digital file which has 0 hiss, and I just want to see how much the recording is introduced to that. So I'll just let it record for a few more seconds and we'll have a listen. Right, well I think that's enough of that, so we'll just pause it there and we'll rewind. Yeah, there's noticeable hiss in the background there. Not overpowering, but it's there. At a volume that you'd listen to this at, it's not too easy to make it out, but if you turn it all the way up, yeah, it's there. If you played rock into this or something with a bit more punch, you wouldn't even notice that. I'll demonstrate that in a bit, but we'll stop that one there, and now we'll try it with a Type 2 cassette. Yeah, now that's a bit quiet. And I didn't adjust the recording level. It's on maximum. Yeah, I think I know what's going on here. This tape is a proper chrome tape, as in when they were proper chrome dioxide. Later on, they became a mixture of like cobalt and things, and they just class them as Type 2. Perhaps it's not good at recording onto these tapes. It's a good demonstration of why you need to have a cassette recorder that can record onto particular tapes, because not every tape will work in every cassette recorder. So yeah, original Type 2, proper Type 2, real chrome, I wouldn't use those in this. Let me go and find a more recent Type 2. Okay, so I've just unwrapped this, a Fuji DR2. I think this is one of the last of the Type 2 cassettes that were made by a major manufacturer. Let's pop this in here. Not one of the best tapes, not one of the worst. Let's put it into record pause and try again. So as you can see here on the top, we've got it set into the Type 2 mode up there. And I'll just turn that into auxiliary. We'll press play on here. And we'll just take that pause off. Let's stop and rewind, turn it into the cassette mode and have a listen. Ah, there we go, that's much louder. Quite a bit of background noise here though. Based on that little test, which is just using one kind of cassette, I would suggest you're better off recording on Type 1 tapes with this. I mean, I could go through and test a load of different cassette types, but it'll be a bit irrelevant because most people can't get hold of Type 2 tapes very easily, so they'll be recording onto Type 1 if they're recording anything, and it sounds better on that anyway. So if I was you, just stick with your Type 1s. Right, I'm just connected up to Bluetooth. I can see it there at the bottom, so we'll get that linked up and then we'll try a recording from Bluetooth onto this. Okay, I'm just going to have a listen back through that. Now, I've been recording on Type 1 tape here. And we've got the recording level set to maximum. So really, we probably can't hear any hiss in the background of this one. Yeah, when it's a busy track like this, you just can't determine the background noise. I suspect that this noise reduction system they've got goes some way towards just reducing it down a little bit. It doesn't make it all digital and weird. It just takes that hiss down a notch or two. So it doesn't completely eliminate that cassette tape sound, which is what you want, but it also doesn't make it noisy. In fact, one thing we should test here is a cassette played with this device with nothing recorded on it at maximum volume, and then I'll play it with another device as well, and we'll see how much hiss difference there is between the two. So we'll just get a little bit further into this cassette because I don't think there's anything on this side. Yeah, right, okay. So let's just turn this up and have a listen. Okay, let's test this same cassette in a different boombox, and one that I do want to refer to in this video because it reminds me a little bit of this, or should I say this reminds me of that. Let's have a look at it. Okay, so here it is. What you're looking at is the Bang & Olufsen Biosystem 10. This is a simple cassette and radio that came out in 1989. There's just something about the design of the We Are Rewind blaster that reminds me of this. I think mostly it's this aluminium handle at the top. Okay, so I've got the same cassette we used in the other one with nothing recorded on this side. Let's just turn the volume up to maximum and press play and have a listen. Yeah, enough white noise to send you to sleep there. Let's just do a bit of a comparison with this tape. So we'll just play it now and have a listen to what this sounds like at a sensible volume, and then we'll swap over to the blaster. Now, beyond the slight visual similarities in certain areas, the main reason I broke out this particular device to do a comparison against this is because back in the day, this was a very expensive device. Being from Bang & Olufsen, it cost quite a bit. How much? £249. That's in 1989. Stick that into an inflation calculator, that's £667 nowadays. So for your £667, you got a cassette, a radio, and a built-in phono preamp. The radio's got some preset buttons and it sounds all right, it's okay, but yeah, I mean, it's not all that, is it? And as soon as you start listening to anything on this, you realise that this is leagues ahead of this. I mean, I haven't actually played many cassettes through this because I know they sound mediocre at best, whereas on this, they sound really good, which is why I've got so many cassettes here, because I've been playing various different ones through it because I wanted to see, oh, I wonder how this one would sound. And I've been happy with all of them. So this device in the UK at the moment costs £389. Remember, if we had the inflation and all that onto this, 667. So if those two things were in the shop at the moment, I'd be picking this one. This has Bluetooth and it's got a cassette player recorder, so we don't have the radio. I think it needs the radio, but that's just my opinion. In fact, I think it needs a radio and a CD. If they were successful with this one in the market, which who knows, but if this one proves to be a success, hopefully they'll in the future introduce one with more features. A radio and a CD would be ideal for me. And yeah, it would cost even more than this, but for some reason, rather than £389, if that was £500, that would seem sort of more value for money in a way than this does at the moment. But I've got to say something about the price. Whenever you mention something in a video, or whenever I've mentioned something on YouTube and said how much it costs, whatever it is, even things down to single-digit prices, someone will say that's too expensive. And I'm sure there'll be lots of that's too expensive with this. What people forget to say in that sentence, though, is that's too expensive for me. Now, I would say this is too expensive for me as well. I wouldn't pay 390 quid for these features. I'm happy with the way it performs, but for me, £389 is not the kind of money I'd want to spend on something like this at the moment. I certainly wouldn't want to pay £667 or the equivalent of for this either. However, that's me. I've featured things in videos that cost a heck of a lot of money. In fact, one of the things was this wave machine down here, which is just a hobbyist device. It was like $400 odd dollars or something. And all the comments are, that's too expensive, I'll make one myself. Well, of course, none of those people will have made one themselves. And as soon as the video went out, they sold out immediately. So for somebody somewhere, things aren't too expensive. And for somebody somewhere, this wouldn't be too expensive. I mean, there's people who have wristwatches that cost more than a car. There's people who have cars that cost more than a house. And there's people who have houses that cost more than I could earn in 100 lifetimes, probably. So there's somebody somewhere for everything at every price point. I hope there's enough people for this, because if there is, hopefully it'll become a success and then it can start making some more with the features that I would expect to see on a device like this. But as it is, if you can afford it, if the money doesn't really matter, if £389 is fine for something like this, then you're going to get the best cassette player, portable stereo device on the market at the moment, without a doubt, because I've tested all the modern day ones, or all the ones I need to test, and they're pretty terrible. This isn't terrible. It sounds really nice. It's a very good Bluetooth speaker as well, if you just want a basic Bluetooth speaker. I mean, we're not talking about streaming AirPlay to it and Google Cast and all that kind of stuff, just a basic Bluetooth speaker. But how many posh Bluetooth speakers are there that cost an absolute fortune and don't even offer stereo? They're just one speaker. Whereas this, nice stereo device, plenty of bass, very rich sound. So yeah, I like it, but I wouldn't pay £390 for it. But there'll be somebody somewhere that would. So if you say this is too expensive, remember to add for me at the end, because it's all about how much money you're prepared to spend on something. Right, we're in. Let me just unplug this wire here. This is connecting the battery pack to the rest of it. Right. Oh dear, not an awful lot to see, is there? Now this reminds me a little bit of opening the bonnet on a modern day car when everything's covered with a plastic cowl. I'll try and take some of this off. I'm not going to go too far down into this if it's starting to get a bit sketchy, because I don't want to damage anything. But I can see here there's a load of screws around this base port thing. I don't think there's any point really taking those out, because it's just a tube going back to here. So we'll try and take some of the other ones out and see what happens. I will say it's constructed to a quality that you just don't see in things nowadays. I mean, the amount of attention to detail in here, as far as making sure everything's secured together and hidden, is impressive. Oh, well, that just revealed nothing. Okay, look, just another hole. Okay, we'll take a couple more screws out. Let's just take these ones out here. Yeah, nothing to see there either. Okay, I'm just going to take a few more screws out. I'm not going to get too far into this. It's getting a bit silly now. You can see how well it's put together now. I mean, just look back here. The wires have got foam over the top of them to prevent any kind of rattling, and it's been taped down there as well. Yeah, they've clearly spent a lot of time putting this together, and I don't know how much time I want to spend trying to take it apart. We'll just take a couple more screws out, and if this doesn't work, I'm going to pop it back together again. Right, I have removed every screw that I can see, so if this doesn't lift off now, that's the end of it. That's still firmly in place. Yeah, nothing's happening. Okay, don't know how to take it apart. Let's put it back together again. I was trying to think of what I haven't tested, and one of the things is the headphone output. So I put the headphones on, listen to the cassette, but more importantly, press pause, turn the volume all the way up. And there was no kind of background noise, buzz or anything. And they just sound as they should do. There's nothing wrong with those at all. So yeah, headphone output works just fine, as you'd expect. The only other thing that's left to test is the microphone input. I can't really imagine many people wanting to use this feature. I certainly wouldn't be one of them, but I know if I don't test it, that'll be the number one thing. Everyone will be, why didn't you test the microphone? So let's test the microphone for the people who want to use it, which is almost nobody, I'd imagine. Okay, so what I've done, because I can't find a mic that I would plug into this that would be the right one, I'm using a little wireless receiver dongle and a wireless microphone. So let's just put this into record pause, and I've got everything turned up to maximum just in case. Okay, so yeah, microphone. I mean, I'm not going to do the old testing 1, 2, 3. Let's do I'm rapping, rappity, rapping. Let's just rewind that one a little bit and play it, see what happens. Oh my giddy ant! I'm not going to do the old testing 1, 2, 3. Let's do I'm rapping, rappity, rapping. Okay, mic works. Now I've been charging it up overnight. The inputs on the side there, I didn't show that by the way before. There's nothing on this side. And I just thought I'd have a listen to Bluetooth rather than cassette, and it sounds great. It's just I've noticed that even when my phone turned up to maximum volume, and this turned up to maximum volume, it's not too loud. It's loud enough, but it's not too loud. I think it very much depends on the volume that the track is recorded at. I think if I pick a different one, it'll be much louder. We'll find that out. Let's just test this out first. Yeah, that's maximum. And this is maximum as well. It sounds nice, but let's find another track with a bit more volume. Okay, so I've got the same track on my little Walkman here. We'll see if this is any louder. This has had its volume output delimited. I don't know if that's going to make any difference for the Bluetooth, but it does for the headphone socket. In fact, we'll try it through the headphone as well, but we'll start off with the Bluetooth. Yeah, that was much louder, plenty loud enough. I wouldn't have wanted it any louder than that, but we'll just see if it's any different via the headphone output. Yeah, that was definitely the loudest. I think you can see it on the VU meters as well. So yeah, if you want the loudest results, plug your device into the auxiliary input. But if you're using a Bluetooth device, you might find that some are louder than others. Right, now here's a coincidence. Just last week, I put out a video, only on Patreon at the moment, about a CD radio cassette recorder from 1997, a Japanese-only device, which produced excellent quality sound on cassette, despite the fact it was a basic device as far as a cassette player goes. And that was down to the fact it had a good amplifier and good speakers in it. And I was bemoaning the fact in that video that nobody's doing anything like that nowadays. The cassette mech that was in that was much the same as what you can still get nowadays. So I suggested, why didn't people just get that cassette mech that you can get, attach it up to some decent speakers with a decent amplifier and throw in Bluetooth and a lithium battery. I mean, it's all possible, and it's just been proven by this device here that, yeah, it is possible, and it sounded as good as I'd expect it to. This is definitely the best sounding portable cassette player / recorder available on the market new today. Notice I did a lot of qualifiers on that, because I mean, there's different devices from the past with more features and such like, but this is the best sounding one you can buy in the shops now, and that is why I'm going to jump this video in front of the other one, because you can buy this now, I think, perhaps even maybe get it for Christmas. But I know there's a lot of people asking for a review of this right now, and no one's asked me for a review of the thing from 1997. So I'll jump this one in front of it in the queue. This one will be out before that one. But yeah, when you see the video after this, where I'm saying nobody's making anything like this anymore, well, they are, and it's this one here. Yes, at a price, and yes, I would like it to have more features. I'd like it to have a CD player and FM radio, but you know, I'm not in charge here. They make what they want, but hopefully in time there'll be other devices come out like this that are using the same idea. That cassette deck's fine if you know what to do with it. The performance out of this one is better than it was out of the device from 1997. So this is all round a better device than pretty much any of the boomboxes I've got as far as sound quality goes from a cassette deck, despite the fact it doesn't have all the features that you might expect on some of the older devices. So yes, if the price for this makes sense to you, then I get one, because you're probably not going to find anything better than this that can play cassettes right now. But anyway, that's it for the moment. As always, thanks for watching.